The Exeter coach actually contacted me, which I think sort of initially planted the seed for the move. But I'm actually from Exeter, and I haven't lived in Exeter for 12 years for various reasons, sort of university, obviously joining the forces. And surprisingly, there aren't many bases down in the southwest. So obviously now having the opportunity to be full time, I sort of couldn't say no to the opportunity of obviously going to one of the top Premiership sides, but also moving back home near the family.
How have they welcomed you back? Has it been kind of open arms? Has the family been, it's good to have you home?
Yeah, no, definitely. I think it's sort of been a bit of adjustment. I've actually got two young nieces now, so I've very much been on auntie duties since I've been back, which actually has been really nice. And it's actually really nice as well. So we've sort of played two home games now, and it's nice to be able to look into the crowd and sort of have the family there supporting, which again I haven't really had in a while. So that's been really nice.
The women's teams of the two clubs have been on the same kind of journey, haven't they? I think Tigers coming in as an expansion team a couple of years after Exeter, but both very much on the upward trajectory. That's what it seems from the outside. Is it the same thing on the inside?
Yeah, definitely. I guess Tigers are kind of like in the early stages of getting themselves like extremely competitive. But where they are as a program in terms of like facilities, the support, and you can see sort of things about a 5-year plan, which actually is where Chiefs are now. They're in their 5th season. So I think you can obviously see that Tigers are hopefully going to get to a position that Chiefs are in. But as I say, coming down here. You can see why Chiefs are a top 4 team consistently. As I say, the coaching, the standards that the players hold, so all the facilities, everything that we do is extremely professional. So it's been really good to kind of have a bit more of an insight into that and be part of it.
In terms of the Premiership season, and I'm talking from a bit of a macro scale here, is that there's definitely been a step up in terms of how the competition's been promoted again from the outside in the build up to next year's World Cup. You have been one of the faces of that campaign in the Powered Up. How did that come about? But also, is that something which the players have responded well to seeing that happen from the RFU?
Yeah, definitely. I think the women's game is just in such. We're still in a semi-professional space, I guess. So actually, I don't know whether people from the outside realise how many people still juggle a full-time job and playing, well, essentially, I guess, professional rugby. So I think the fact that the PWR have done a campaign to highlight that and highlight actually that people don't just have sort of part-time on the side careers, people have full-time. We have doctors, dentists, obviously people in the forces. The fact that they've highlighted that, I think, has been really, really good. And I think in terms of myself being in the RAF, it's been probably one of the best career moves I've ever made. So if rugby doesn't go so well for me or whatever happens with rugby, I know that I've got a full career behind me. And obviously the Air Force have been really supportive. So my primary role at the moment is rugby. And I think not many careers allow you or support you to do that. So obviously I'm grateful for Chiefs that they've kind of allowed me to put that message across. And actually, I think a lot of the girls have gone, oh, so you can be in the Air Force and you can play rugby. So actually, the message is getting across in the way that we want it to. So hopefully, we've maybe got a few more recruits or kind of given people some more career ideas, opportunities with those campaigns. So it's been good.
But how did it come about in terms of you being one of the faces of that campaign? And then when you see kind of yourself in kit and in uniform on social media, is it a bit what's the reaction been from, again, to go back to the family and moving down? Did they know that it was happening, or did you just bring it on a surprise?
No, they often tell me that I don't let them know these things are happening, and then they kind of just pop up on social media and they go, "You didn't tell us you were doing that." But no, I think as I say, it was sort of one of the Chiefs media managers. I think looking at the picture, or myself when it came out, obviously I didn't see any of the content until it got posted. It's quite a dramatic picture, and I think sort of having the forces representation in your face in uniform is a huge part of me. And I think as well, it's a really big thing for the campaign to see those contrasts. So yeah, it was really, really cool. And I say, like, I think I had really good reaction from the girls. I think until you see someone in uniform, you don't necessarily know their role. So I think, yeah, it had quite a big impact. It was good.
The RAF have been well represented in the P or have been represented in the PWR for a few years. Yourself, Amy Cockayne, the Army with Jade Mullen and Lauren Brooks, and and now Sophie Bonavent. With Rowan Sinclair signing for Tigers and to have a Navy representation in as well, how much of an impact do you think that can have on the whole of Forces Rugby? Because we've seen the positive benefits for the RAF and the Army. Do you think the same thing can start to happen with the Navy as well?
Yeah, no, absolutely. As I say, to see actually played against her at the weekend. So to see representation across all forces, I think well, everyone probably knows in saying that the Army and the Air Force, in terms of where they are with rugby, is a lot greater. And we obviously want it to be competitive across all three services. I think the Navy, you see year on year that they're growing, and having players within the Premiership rugby is absolutely like evidence that it is growing. And I think as well, I think the Navy are just as supportive as the Army and the RAF in wanting to grow the game and wanting to have players playing at the highest levels. So yeah, it's been really good to see that they are kind of breaking into that era, because the Navy are getting closer and closer every year. And I say this is only going to hopefully continue to make it even more competitive.
Quick reflection on last year. Obviously, it ended up being a winner take all at Gloucester. We didn't talk after that game, but the fact that game was the final game of the campaign rather than the RAF playing your two games previously to that, what was in terms of how your preparation in camp, was there a noticeable difference than knowing that it was the last game versus say previous years where that Gloucester game has been the second game or even the first game?
Yeah, definitely. I think how we prep for the campaign, depending whether we play Navy, Army first, it kind of does differ. And actually, because there was a bigger gap, because the Navy and the Army game was in between, it allowed us as the Air Force to come together a further time before we played the Army. So in terms of preparation for us, like that was really, really good. And I believe we're doing the same this year, or the next inter services. And I think the sorry, I think the fact that is kind of the showcase game is showing like how competitive it is, and the fact that the men are reflecting in how the women's games are going as well shows that the women's game's getting even more competitive, and that's actually one of the games to watch rather than it always being the men's that we kind of follow and go round. But as I say, yeah, I think we were disappointed last year with our performance against the Army, and I think there's a few things that and probably the Navy, I don't think we took as many learnings from them as we should have done going into the Army game. But I think the fact that it's been reflected again this year, the fact that the Army's the last game, hopefully that's going to put us in an even better position.
During the off season and then coming into the because it's such an extended build up towards intercept. We're here in middle of October. We're looking ahead to May already. Tickets went on sale a couple of weeks ago for Gloucester. There's several hundred people booked already, despite it being months and months away. Same with Army Navy. How do you, as a group, and you as a captain, and as a leadership group, how do you go about getting all of the play or everybody in the squad, both that kind of core 23, and then everybody else, into the way where you can start getting yourselves ready mindset wise, especially because if we look back to last January and February, you were having games cancelled all the time because of the weather conditions. So that squad building, what's the process that goes into that from your perspective?
You know what, it's having played high level rugby for years and years, I've never experienced the pressure that comes with playing almost like a one shot to win game, or two shots to win game. It's really difficult mentally to prepare as a squad when there's so much pressure on a result from a singular game. So it is hard to prep, but I think that with the way the world's going at the moment, and how involved we are in so many sort of like ongoings, it is really difficult to come together as a team. And like you say, unfortunately, actually, we probably all our warm-up games are in the tail end of the worst weather that we have in the UK. So yeah, we didn't necessarily have the best preparation for that. But I think we've kind of got new management staff who are looking at organising things a little bit differently this year to make sure that we can get all the players at all camps. And I think the fact that the inter-services now push back a little bit towards May gives us that longer preparation time. But people are really, really committed. As I say, people love wearing sort of the Air Force badge. And, well, myself included, but all the squad I know will do anything that they can to make sure that they're released. They put themselves in the best position. So whether we're actually physically in camp, we've got a great sort of strength and conditioning coach that sends us programs throughout the year. So there's stuff that we can be doing when we're not together. But obviously, the more time that we can get together and the more warm-up games that we can have, that's sort of the best preparation that we can have going into the inter-services.
In some respects, is it kind of quite Barbarians-esque as well in terms of making sure that from the social side that there is that bond as much as there is on the rugby side?
Yeah, no, absolutely. As I say, you kind of got to have that togetherness as a team to cross that white line and want to fight as hard as you can for, I say, the badge, but also for each other. And I think the more that you get to know people off the field and sort of how they tick, we talk about it a lot here at Chiefs, actually. It's sort of getting to know your teammates so they know how to receive feedback, whether that's constructive criticism, whether that's kind of like waiting till after the game to say sort of like little like points to better each other as a team. That's something that you don't necessarily know how to do or the right way to do until you know each other. Luckily, the squad that we've got now, although we've had a few sort of new people come in, actually the core of the squad we've had for the last couple of years. So we do know each other quite well. But yeah, no, it's absolutely huge. I would say me as a captain, the off-field stuff is just as important as the on-field stuff. So we've got a really good group, but we do work hard to kind of build those relations, do a bit of team bonding. So we definitely get those sorts of get to know each other activities in camps as well, leading into the campaign.
I guess I'm going to ask this question again in a few months, no doubt anyway, but already with the women's game, we're talking about the impact of the World Cup coming up this time next year. Of course, for forces teams, there's the International Defence Rugby competition as well coming up in a year's time nearly. How much is that going to be playing at the back of people's minds to try and put their hands up for UCAF at the same time during the inter-services?
Yeah, definitely. I say they went to New Zealand, I think it was the year of the World Cup before, the Defence World Cup followed that. And I think that was the first of its kind. And it was an amazing experience. We don't, because we as UK Armed Forces, actually, I think we played the French forces, but we haven't really played any other teams. Just to see how rugby's growing and what forces rugby's like across the world is amazing. And I think the fact that it's at home, so we can have friends and family come and support, but also the fact that it follows the Women's World Cup, I think is amazing. I think it just shows how much defence rugby's grown, and we've never really had something to strive for. I think obviously you've always had in services, you've always had the remembrance fixture for UK Armed Forces, but the fact we've got a full tournament now and you can see how supported the programme is. It's something amazing to be able to strive for. And obviously the team does get picked off the back of the inter-services. So although you've got the team sort of wanting to win the inter-services, individuals now can obviously strive to push themselves to kind of get a ticket, you say, to that Defence World Cup.